I'm now going to call upon Roshnee to show us some of her beautiful work and her idea of what constitutes branding in placemaking. So, Roshnee, you're up.
Hi everyone. Hi Firdaus. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And sort of, your work is so inspiring, and I'm so happy to see designers pushing the way the way design should in India, and this pride with that we have for an Indian culture, and how much there is already in our world to sort of and not look outside of India, right? I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just let me know if you can see. I hope that's visible. All right, great. So yeah, a little bit. I am quite new to the world of placemaking, but the way I've entered this sort of universe of local design is really when I was approached by Jamiti, I think I realized how important this conversation is. And a little bit about me: I have had 12 years of experience. I think Firdaus gave a great introduction to me, so I'm not going to go deeper into my background, but I've had experience working for a lot of brands, branding studios, across the world. And one thing that always bothered me is that Indian brands really, really need to package themselves better, and the way we have so much visual culture and storytelling in India, and that never gets sort of its due, especially in the Indian context. I run a small studio called Local, based out of Mumbai. And when I started off, I think the main focus was that I wanted to work for companies that wanted to change the world, right? Who kind of wanted to make a change from, which were rooted in the local but affecting the global. So the idea is, every single company has to have that. If you want to sort of go higher than where you are, if you are sort of telling the truth of your local context, and then that's when you can really reach sort of global heights. Here what we do at Local is we work on strategy and research, brand design, and then we also do the rollout and creative direction. So everything from sort of thinking of the brand to the entire experience of the brand. And so our motto overall in Local, I don't know how many of you know about this design. There's a design sort of rules which says form and function makes design. But what we believe is the secret sauce to any good design is culture. And I think today I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, because that really is the DNA of what we should be talking about in placemaking and in design in general. So I would say that my focus has sort of been the idea of decolonizing Indian design, right? A lot of people, we've been told what graphic design and messaging should be, and what internationally looks good, and then you come to India and you see India's visual culture, which is so diverse, and it's so different. And then there was always this sense of almost loss of pride that I felt people would in India would feel, and students, especially when I'm teaching. And the idea is to bring back that sense of pride in Indian visual culture. So coming back to sort of what design is, right? Design is problem solving, right? Fine, basic problems. I want you guys to look at the couple of pictures, the next few pictures, and tell me what you think is the problem. So this is all branding. These are big brands, multi-million dollar deals. They have so much money to pump into our market. They're telling you advertising. They have the world at their feet. They have the best locations to be shown at and everything. And this is what we see, right? This is design, but this is design problem according to me. And the reason this is a problem is because design is about communication and about sort of giving character to a place. each of these guys are looking at their own brand and they're thinking of themselves in isolation. But no man, no brand is an island, right? You are existing in a cultural context. You live in this universe. And I think all of these brands are sort of ignoring that, right? So that seems to be the problem here. Um, and so if we just said, okay, design is form plus function. So the form is there and it's creating the function, it's telling you about the messaging, but it's missing culture. And this is what I want to get at. So what do we mean by that? What do you mean missing culture? How do you even do something like this right? And so I found some beautiful examples. So if you, the Jaipur Bazaar has this amazing way of having the signages of each of their shops. You can read all the signage, it's giving you the form and function, but it's also respecting the culture around it. It is talking about the context it lives inside, right? And similarly, if you look at the amazingly beautiful and quiet signage system that the Red Fort has, if you even the iconography has been like taken from what you see around you, so nothing is out of place. It is communicating, it is messaging, it's storytelling, everything, but without being noisy, without creating visual pollution. And it is kind of, balancing the whole idea of form, function, and culture. And I think that's what sort of I want you guys to think about. So my thought is, I mean, this is of course a hypothesis, but having worked with brands in the UK and stuff, I realized that when a designer in Germany or UK who was designing the Vodafone brand sat down and created the Vodafone store frontage rules, this is the sort of street he was thinking of, right? A gray street, and where the red of the logo and the Vodafone signage just pops out and looks smart, and it doesn't scream, but it's sort of gives you a message. However, when a brand like this comes to India, this is what happens, right? It doesn't, it's not respecting the context it lives in, and suddenly everything around it is screaming, and so is the signage, and suddenly it doesn't make sense anymore. And my sort of practice and push has been to kind of question these things, right? So when I ask you guys, right, so okay, we say the secret sauce is culture, but what forms culture? I would ask this question, but I think we're quite short in time here. So of course, music, movies, shows, your monuments, traditions and rituals, people you meet, stories you hear, smells you experience, food you eat, presentations of things. Overall, culture is how you were made to feel, right? And whether you go to a person's home, whether you go to another country, do you go to a city, culture is that feeling, that intangible kind of quality that you get, which is a sum of every experience you've had there, and how the feeling you go away with. And I think a bigger issue right now with placemaking is people will see ads of India, read books about India, but when they come to India, it doesn't look like what they thought it would look like. Sort of what Saurabh was talking about, the Paris effect, right? There's this romanticized idea. And how can we bridge that gap is sort of where, the question of design lies. So designers do have a cultural responsibility, more than you think. And I think we as designers need to sort of take that up, but also I think we should be put in positions where we can make those calls, take those decisions, and help sort of shape that narrative. And so I've been asking a bunch of questions, right? Which has, what is Indian design? What are the differentiators? Why is Indian, when you look at Indian design, why is it called a craft and not design, right? There's so many different problems right now with the genre of design in India, and it gets very confused. And so I started Local, the studio, and we've been doing, a lot of work with brands, and all the work that we do is borrowed from things we see around us. So what we do, instead of going on the internet and looking at brands abroad, we walk around our areas. We do something called local walks, and we sort of catalog a lot of imagery and type and visual culture to see what is India's way of talking. What does the color red and orange mean to us? How do we balance color? How do we talk, and how do we type? What does typography mean to us, right? And so we actually we literally take from what we see and we create that into branding. And I'm not going to go deep into my work, but we've used those kind of learnings throughout our processes while building all of our brands. And the brands have been across, this is a social brand for uh, sort of tier 2, tier 3 cities, to teach young girls about sexual health. This is a brand, it's a restaurant. This is another restaurant where it was about, we kind of studied the history of pre-partitioned India. And that the restaurant sort of wanted to hark about, bring back sort of food that was lost when the partition happened. There was a very peculiar amalgamation of food, and we kind of wanted to bring those flavors in. So there's a lot of storytelling, and we dug out a lot of old stories and there's also something called the Museum of Material Memory that we partnered with, where people who had left during partition, what are the few objects that they brought back when they left their home. And I think that became, the sort of look and feel of this brand. We did Tribe, which is, a brand which was born out of the tattoos of different tribes in India. And just sort of using visual storytelling from what we see around us. This was a taxi that was designed to talk about women's safety in the public space. And, again, placemaking. Can the place actually travel across the city? Does it have to be a static place? And then this was a project I had done back in the day when I was a young designer early in my career, which I think changed my life. We traveled across the state of West Bengal, and we did the branding of the state of West Bengal. This is before, during the communist government time, and they wanted to talk about, Shobha Bangla, which is everyone's Bengal. And we traveled for a month. We shot hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and that became the brand. And just the experience of talking to villagers and small school teachers, and like how they want to communicate about their state. We were asking them to tell us what they think their state stands for. And it was a beautiful experience, very enriching, and I think sort of led me to do what I do today. I also like to teach, and kind of, I think when I teach, I learn so much. So also I did this talk with a very diverse bunch of kids back in my college in London. I went back to teach, which was amazing. I taught about how to bring your culture into graphic design, and that was so interesting to talk to people from different parts of the world, who how they see their culture, and how to kind of help them find their way into design. How do they inject that? Because it's also, this is a big jump. There's a lot of looking down upon, especially non-colonial cultures, right? And so in 2020, after doing all the studio work, I decided to make a little shift, because I was like, it's still not enough, And so what we did was we created a lab and a community along with local. The lab started, and within the lab we have a repository where we collect a lot of visual data which we see around us, very much like the local box that I showed you. And then out of the repository comes projects, and the projects are built from stuff that we want to bring through community. So not just people, not just the overall community, but also the design community in particular. We're harnessing them to kind of create projects that help push the idea of design in India, and what, how can we make this outside inside connection, right? And our sort of missions are, we've got like 6 missions for labs. It's one is research and study local. Second is to experiment and push. Third is to make important information visible. Fourth is to solve real problems, because design often just does pretty things but doesn't solve anything. Archive and guide, because we need to collect all that. There's just so much visual history and culture in India, and nobody has ever written a book on design and graphic design in India. So I think that one of the big ones is that. And then of course lead by example, and hope that more people start doing what we are trying to do here. And so one of our first projects was in collaboration with this amazing German designer, and who's running something called Open Collab, and he has this platform where you can auto-generate posters, and we got it was amazing. We got 350 designers to log in for a period of 8 hours, and we created 5 lakh unique posters online, all during the middle of COVID. Nobody had to step out their house, and we created this crazy community of designers who would just apply. So basically, people would keep uploading layers, and then these posters would get generated, and that was just an amazingly magical experience. The second project that we're currently running is called the Indian Graphic Design Story, which is more about, sort of documenting what Indian design is. So we kind of take one topic, like a graphic topic, like Indian graphic murals, political murals, and sort of do a whole analysis about them. We do interviews, we do, we actually break it down and kind of try to understand the sort of from a scientific perspective what a political mural is. And same thing with the Indian graphic candy graphics, and what are the colors, what are the common rules. So because graphic design has traditionally always been seen from a European perspective, and those rules have become sort of the law, we are trying to say, hey, here are Indian rules. This works for us, and we love it, and we've grown up with this stuff. And so, we're trying to standardize and create a sort of documentation of all this stuff. And so labs is ongoing. There's a lot of more plans for the future for it. But in summary, I would like to say that India is a treasure trove of visual stories, and it's a brand that already exists. We don't have to create the Indian brand. It just needs to be cleaned up and designed thoda sa pyar se and beautifully wrapped up. And yeah, I think that is sort of what I would like to end with today.
Wonderful, Roshni. Really love seeing all that. And the work is beautiful, and really the depth of thinking that goes into all your work is astounding.